This is Saskia, and this is Note to Self, your weekly dose of everything that's simply too long to text. Consider this your personal invitation into my inner circle, where I share my thoughts, feelings, and quiet reflections that usually live inside my Notes app. Thanks for joining me. Hi, listeners. Welcome to Note to Self. Excited to be here. I am always wondering how to start the podcast. Every week I have my notes, but I'm like, I've got to do a little casual intro, warm you guys up for the week. And all I ever want to talk about is the weather, but I told myself I'm not allowed to this week, so I'm banned. But really, I feel like my whole life has been taken over by one thing, because as you all know, those who listen regularly, I tend to get kind of obsessed with some pop culture related thing and dive my whole time into it. Before what I'm about to discuss, last weekend I rotted on the couch for an entire day and watched the whole season of Love Overboard, the new reality TV show on Hulu by Call Her Daddy, under Alex Cooper's production company, Unwell. It's like a mix of Below Deck and Love Island, and it is amazing. I was obsessed with it. I binged all 12 episodes. Highly recommend it. It's just, guys, I'm a sucker for a reality TV show a reality TV dating show, depending on the vibes, because I don't love, what's it called, where they go in the pods? Love is Blind. Something about it just does not. It's just, I always leave the show feeling kind of sad. I'm like, why do I feel sad after watching this? Love Overboard was perfect. They're all young. They're hot. It's just like fun. It doesn't have to be serious. And it just reminds me of Love Island. And it was great television. Lots of drama. But yeah, so spent a lot of time deep in that world. But really, this week, I have been deep in the new Raye album. So obsessed with it. So I've never really listened to her music a ton, other than, the songs that you hear on the charts. But I heard she had released a song prior to this album coming out that she collaborated with Hans Zimmer on a song on her new album. So I listened to that. And for reference, those who don't know Hans Zimmer, he is a famous film composer. And if you don't know his name, you will know his music. He's composed music for films like The Lion King, Gladiator, The Holiday, which is one of my all-time faves. I think that soundtrack is so amazing. I listen to it every Christmas with Cameron Diaz and Kate Winslet, Jack Black. Oh my God, please, say less. Oh, and also, I can't remember his name, guys. No surprise. Anyways, it's great. Those who know it. He also did The Dark Knight, Inception, another great soundtrack, 12 Years a Slave, and one of my all-time favorite film soundtracks, Interstellar. Fantastic movie, fantastic soundtrack. So that's just some of what he's done. This man does not stop. But I was looking if he had collaborated with many pop artists or many kind of mainstream artists in the past beyond just doing film composing. And he has rarely done that. So I think Lady Gaga was one. There was a few others, but they were all for film songs. And I was looking into why he decided to collaborate with Raye, and he was saying that he was really drawn, they're friends, but he was really drawn to her emotional depth and the orchestral potential of her music. So him collaborating with her on this song just does not happen very often. So especially because it's not even a song for a film. It's truly just for her album. So I listened to the full album this week, and the whole album is a message of hope. With the album cover even having a PSA of sorts in the corner that says, "This music may contain hope." It's done through these really big orchestral songs, and at times almost theatrical. I felt like musical theater vibes in some of the songs. And even one of the songs sounded more like a DJ, house music track where it really built you up. But there were these just big musical moments across all these different genres, which I thought was really, really interesting. And I had mentioned this previously on the podcast, and for those who hadn't listened, I've done a review on Heated Rivalry earlier in the season, and I had mentioned kind of the Bad Bunny show and just this kind of tie through I've been seeing in pop culture recently. I also did Wuthering Heights was another example of a film I reviewed, and the tie through of all of this is I feel like right now people are craving art that has these big emotions, big visuals, and big destruction. And by destruction, it doesn't have to be negative. It can be emotional. But I think in this Raye album, there's just so many references to just deep emotional work throughs, deep emotional destruction, and how to overcome it. And I feel like that was just everything that this album's about. And a lot of what we're seeing is blowing up in pop culture right now. And I think people are really craving that. Some titles of the songs in the album are I Will Overcome, Lifeboat, Joy, Happier Times Ahead. I mean, if that doesn't say it, what does? And shout out to Lifeboat. That is one of my favorite songs on the album. It's the kind of almost house music sounding song, and it includes in the backtrack of the song all these people saying, I'm not giving up throughout the whole song. All different types of people, different walks of life, children, elderly people, whoever, you can hear all these different voices saying, I'm not giving up. And this song is so empowering. So if you're ever feeling down or you feel like giving up on something or things are not going the way you want them to go, listen to this song. I think at a time when the world feels so dark and scary, this is why people want music like this. And it's no surprise her album is blowing up right now. But the song I really wanted to dive into around when I listened to this was the song called Clack Symphony, which is the one she did with Hans Zimmer. And I had mentioned to you that I had previously listened to this song, and it did not resonate with me in the way it did when I listened to this album. So I'll provide a little bit of context. Last week on the podcast, I spoke a lot about life feeling very uncertain right now and just the grief and transitions as a lot of friends are going through these really big changes in their lives, moving, having kids, getting married, engaged, all these things. And then on top of that, aging parents, I just feel like there's a lot of life changes and I'm struggling to find a footing with this. And I've been feeling very stuck in this feeling and struggling to wonder when I'll have clarity on what is next for me. And in the podcast, I spoke about maybe releasing the need to define myself and my chapter and just letting it unfold, and that life comes in these seasons and maybe we move through freely between them rather than feeling like I need to define each thing. And when we finish one, we're done forever, but we can always revisit these chapters. So we're never really saying goodbye to things, but we're just saying, see you later. And when I tell you, the universe sends you messages in mysterious ways. So after recording the podcast last week, I was at the gym and I was listening to this Raye album, and Clack Symphony came on. And like I'd said, I'd heard this song before and I loved it, but in that moment, the lyrics hit me in a totally different way. I thought it was a different song. Afterwards, I was trying to remember the song because I was like, it's surely not Clack Symphony. I've already heard that one. And then I went back and was like, oh my God, this was the song that really affected me. And the reason it did is because it's all about feeling stuck and going through deep sadness and not being able to get out of it. But the song talks about how getting out with your friends and dancing the sadness away, and at the end recognizing that this sadness is a season and that things will unfold. And I really wanted to share some of the lyrics from the song that really impacted me. And I think it just shows how you can hear things in such different ways depending on the mindset you're in. And that goes beyond just a song you're listening to, but advice from friends, things you're hearing at work, like whatever it is, life. Like I feel like that's when we say the universe is sending us messages. We just have to be open to receiving it. And I clearly had not been open to receiving it yet when I first heard this song, and then I was. So I'm going to read a few lyrics, but we'll start with kind of the first bunch. So she goes, I eat, sleep, scroll, and work, but there has to be more than just merely existing. In fact, I was thinking there's not enough wine in the fridge to unleash me, and this feeling feigns for some feminine healing. And I could never have guessed I started my morning in tears. Got a great waterproof mascara I can recommend. I should try my luck in Hollywood and find some auditions, because the way I fake this smile could pay the mortgage and the rent. I climb into my lonely throne before my TV. So I think the start of this song covers a depressive time in her life. Climb into my lonely throne before the TV. Oof, man. Literally me all the time. I fucking love my TV time. Also, it's okay to climb into your lonely throne before the TV when you need it, but I understand what she's trying to say here. But like, we all go through periods like this. And I think that's why it was so easy to relate to this, starting your morning in tears and no one would have any idea. Do you know how often I'm in freaking tears and then I jump onto a meeting? I'm like, everything's fine. I remember recently being on a call, off camera, tears streaming down my face because I was just dealing with something emotional. And we're all human. And I just love that her lyrics have such, they really describe the human experience. I eat, sleep, scroll, and work. Ugh, there has to be more than merely existing. Yes, I feel that all the time. I'm like, and I said this last week when I was talking about what is like the meaning of life. Like, why are we here? What are we meant to, what is the purpose? And I think for me, the slowly takeaway I'm having is being with the people you love, and it's the time spent. Because it's not about those things. And I think the beauty in this song is the hope that she has, and having her girlfriends there to take her out and support her, because that's what the song continues to speak about. And as she mentioned, saying, this feeling fiends for some feminine healing. And it really reminds me about what I spoke about last week on the podcast, this deep sadness that I'm feeling around all this change right now. And this song just has so much hope in it. And it ends with this almost poem and the classic backing of Hans Zimmer orchestral piece that's just so big, and it really builds and builds and builds. And then there's this poem almost being read. It really is a poem over top of the background of the track. And I feel like the song takes you through recognizing this time that's really difficult in her life, going out with her girlfriends and trying to, get out of that, and leaning on the people in her life, the power of female communities, another podcast episode I've gone into. Go back and listen if you haven't. But the next part of how it ends with this poem is really what sat with me, and I felt so seen, and I felt so much hope, and was like, yes, this is exactly what I was trying to say in the podcast, is like, these things will pass, and stop trying to define it. So I wanted to read what she says next. And this is how she ends the song. Then she put her headphones in, and there she danced under the weight of her clouds. But for the first time in a long time, she believed that one day she would again feel the sun. She must be patient. She must have faith in the seeds that are planted beneath the snow. She must hold on, and she must let go. She'll be all right. No riding, shining, armored knight. She will save herself this time. And in fact, tonight, she did confirm, the cold never lasts, my darling. It just teaches the heart how to burn. Despite me stumbling on the end, those lyrics just resonated with me so hard. And just imagine like this beautiful, intense orchestra playing behind you. It's so, so beautiful. And what happened is, slowly, hours after listening to this song, they became even more impactful, because I had my weekly therapy. And this must have been 2 hours after listening to this song, actually. And I was discussing the feeling with my therapist about grieving change. And my therapist gave me some really good advice, saying that what I am feeling is this deep shedding and letting go of things that do not serve me, and moving into a new version of myself. And that's probably why life feels so uncertain. And she said, don't try and define it. Just try and let it go, and trust everything will make sense soon. And allow yourself to feel the sadness, and trust that it's leading to something new. And that song represents that. That's totally what it is. She speaks about, tonight she did confirm, the cold never lasts, my darling. It just teaches the heart how to burn. So these moments of sadness. I think so often in life we define them as a negative thing to feel sad, but it's just a range of human emotions. And there's a lot of growth in sadness, and there's a lot of uncovering in it as well. And it's a lot of healing too. And like she said, it's just teaching your heart how to burn. It's teaching yourself how to feel even more. And that I loved the part of no shining armored knight is going to save you, but you are. And just learning to let go instead of holding on, to let go. She must hold on and she must let go. She must be patient. She must have faith in the seeds that are planted beneath the snow. It's so beautiful because you have planted all these seeds in your life. Everything is connected. And I think you're in these moments where I feel this big transition. All I can do is hope that what I've put out there is going to be leading to something better and something new. And better, actually, no, I don't like better. Something new and something that is going to be the next chapter, the next season for me. But I just felt the need to share it because ever since I did this episode last week, I just had a lot of people sharing with me, oh my gosh, I'm going through the same thing. I'm really struggling with this feeling. And if you can, just go listen to this song, Clack Symphony by Raye. It's on her new album. The whole album, honestly, you should listen to. It's so inspiring and it's just filled with beautiful emotional journeys that we can all relate to. She has a great song about, dating I think a South London boy or something like that. And it's about dating this guy, the guy you shouldn't really date. But I really appreciated this. And also I think it's important to say, if this conversation about sadness resonates with you in a heavy way, please remember you don't have to go through this alone. Talking with a therapist or mental health professional can really help, and reaching out to someone you trust is always a good step. Never feel like you have to be alone in all seriousness. Now for the topic at hand today, we are quickly pivoting. I've been reflecting on my single life and previously to meeting my partner, Jeffrey, and thinking a lot about dating. Most of my single life was in my 20s, and I really wanted to share some stories and advice from my single days that might be helpful for my single listeners. So to help me with this, I reached out to some of my closest friends and asked them one question. What is your best piece of dating advice? The kind that was hard to learn, but necessary to share. The stuff you wish someone had told you, or the lessons that finally changed everything. And girls, they delivered. So I will be sharing a series of advice from my girlfriends and one of my own to help our little single listeners out there who are going through the hard yards, because trust me, we've all been there. And also, I talk a lot about relationships on this podcast because that's what I'm in, but so much of my life was also single, and there's times I miss it as well. One is not better than the other, I just want to say. But I think it's really important to also reflect on things that I wish people had shared with me or things that I wish I had known. And I wanted to outsource to diversify the feedback. So let's go with my first friend. So she opened with a story that I genuinely can't stop thinking about. So she's on her third date with her now partner. They're making out, things are getting hot and spicy. She is, in her words, straddling him. And she stops, looks him dead in the eye, and says, I think you're cool, but do you want a family someday? Because I do, and I don't want to waste my time. On date 3, while straddling him, God love her, because you know what? That is the thing that you need to be doing. That is the most correct thing I've ever heard. I was the same. Not the same in my history, but when I met Jeffrey, our first date, I said I wanted a family, and that was really important to me. And I think, not putting a mask on and trying to not setting expectations is such a disservice. And she kind of shared that she felt like for years she had been putting a mask on, performing whoever she thought people wanted her to be. And really the moment she stopped doing that and showing up as herself fully and honestly and sharing things like that about wanting a family, everything changed. And I think the advice she was really giving was to be yourself and to ask for what you want. Don't be afraid to ask the hard questions before you've caught feelings. And I think we are told that we can't be bringing this up because it's too intense. And to be honest, if someone finds it is too intense, they're probably not aligned with what you want, and they're not the person you're going to want to be with anyways. And I can definitely relate to that of feeling scared to say certain things because in case it pushes them away, when in the reality, if they got pushed away, then I could have just moved on a lot faster. She had 2 other little bits of advice here too, though. This one I thought was good. Until someone proves themselves, she said, keep the joke name in the phone. They are nobody until they are somebody. I did love that. And we all know what the joke name is. Everyone has had a joke name. No one that you've dated, and I will be shocked if many women have ever had a guy's name in their phone that didn't have some type of like joke reference or just full on joke before it was their actual name. Props to the ladies. We're really creative. What can I say? And the final part she kind of gave was she's a big advocate for what, we called the fun slut era, because I think we need to take positive ownership over the word slut, because being a slut is fun and it's empowering if it is on your terms. And that season of life where you're single, you're out, you're with your girlfriends, and you're not handing yourself over to anyone, no one needs you, you don't get that time back. And it's so, so important to just enjoy it and say yes and not feel judged by any means necessary. Because as someone who went through some pretty severe slut shaming when I was younger, I really wish I could have taken that word back, and I'm actively trying to in my own way. And I think that's another topic I could get into a different time because there's a lot there as well. But enjoy your fun slut era. The second friend. So she gave me the best dating framework, and I am obsessed with this. It's so genius. She goes, treat your dating life like the stock market. Stay with me here. You don't need to understand the stock market to get this because she broke it down for us, but also you should go learn finances, follow some financial people. Definitely not me. Rule 1, know your value and how much you're willing to invest. Know your worth, know your limits, and don't overinvest in someone who hasn't earned it yet. Love that, period. Rule 2, diversify your portfolio. Date multiple people until things are explicitly exclusive. This stops you hyperfixating on one person and losing your mind when it doesn't work out. This was advice this friend always gave me, and I never followed it. So I can say from experience, yeah, it's so, so important to do. I mean, I can say from lack of experience, that is. I remember the one time I did do this, it actually did work really well, but I would just get so hyperfixated. I was already hyperfixated. It was so hard to get my brain into another place, but it really does help diversify your portfolio. And also it helps you understand what you really like and what you want. Rule 3, don't confuse market volatility for love. Grand gestures, extreme highs and lows, passion that makes you dizzy, that is not love. That is instability. What you actually want is someone consistent, someone who texts back, plans the next date, shows up, value that builds slowly over time. So you want someone with increasing value. They show themselves from the start, so you want to invest time in them. Do not invest in something that's going up and down so much and it's a waste of your time. I think the market volatility is so true because so often it's so easy to fall for these grand gestures and someone who shows up a ton at the start and then, it feels also overwhelming, otherwise known as love bombing. And I feel like we all know that that's just not the person to stick with, and cut it fast. So she gave a really good example, and I remember this night. So we were in our early 20s living in New York. I think we'd only been here like a year or two. And my friend, it was her birthday, and we went to this bar that I don't even think it exists anymore. It was like in Williamsburg. And this was 2016. So Williamsburg looked very different to how it looks now. For those that don't live in New York, Williamsburg is kind of like the new Soho. And back then it was different for the people who'd lived here forever. Because back then it was, more bars were around. It was a place where a lot of young people went out. Anyways, we had this big birthday party and she invited the 3 guys that she was currently seeing at that time. One of which is now her long-term partner. Shout out, you know who you are. We love you. Anyways, she said this she kind of gave the example of inviting the 3 guys to her birthday in relation to the stock market. And she said this would be relative valuation. She had to analyze all of my stocks' value ratios against one another in a similar setting for benchmarking purposes. I'm obsessed with this. It's so good. And it honestly is true because I distinctly remember seeing the 3 of them there and the way they reacted. And I think they did. Some of them realized what they were about all seeing her. But shout out, because clearly the guy who she was meant to be with is still here to this day. But I really think that that also is, and maybe not as chaotic as that, but a good way to analyze, the right person you want to be with. I remember, early days of when you're dating someone, and early days when I was dating Jeffrey, I was seeing one other guy, and I remember pretty clearly being able to tell that Jeffrey was the person I wanted to be with. And I had gone on one other date with a guy, and I was a little like, maybe, but it was so clear to me when I started to compare it that I was like, this is not what I want. And Jeffrey was who I wanted. But it almost was helpful to have another person to come to that realization in a way. She also said that she feels like a lot of people fall in love with the thought of you before they fall in love with you. And I thought that was really, really true. And I feel like, again, it kind of ties into this idea of just needing to take time to get to know someone, and that love is something that grows. So, it's easy to fall in love with the idea of someone rather than who they actually are. And whether you end up falling in love with who they actually are, or it was the idea and it's not who they are and you have to let it go. It's just something that I thought was interesting to keep in mind. And her final takeaway was men especially cannot read your mind. So stop expecting them to. Say what you want. As of the first friend's advice, set your expectations. And I think don't be scared to ask her what you want, because you're never going to get what you want if you don't. And that's across all facets of life. So thank you, second friend. We're not using their names. Sorry, guys. The third friend. So her confession to me was that she was the queen of manufactured proximity. So what is this? So she said she would show up at the same bar, existing constantly in someone's orbit, spending an absolutely wild amount of time of mental energy replaying scenarios and playing out the what ifs. So she was just always kind of like being in places where they were and trying to get into their orbit. And then if she wasn't actually physically in their orbit, she was mentally in their orbit. So she tried to just constantly get herself in front of them to get what she wanted. But what she wouldn't do is that eventually when it would be in front of them, she would never say how she actually felt. Her words exactly. If I had put that much energy into other avenues of my life, I would literally be piloting Artemis right now. It made me giggle. But girl, honestly, I feel you. The amount of time I spent wasted thinking about stupid guys who were not worth my time. What? Imagine, who would I be right now? How much time would I have? But we cannot spend this time in the past, because we've all been there. We all do it. It's part of life, and you live and you learn. But she gave a really good example of this is from the iconic TV show Girls. For those who don't know it, you may not understand this reference, but 2 of the characters, Adam and Hannah, who are the main characters in it, Lena Dunham plays Hannah, and Adam Driver plays Adam. And there was a scene where Adam is speaking about his relationship with Hannah. And he talks about how he didn't really know who she was at first, or even think about a relationship, but she was just somehow always there. And then it made him think of her more and grow to love her. And my friend was sharing this to me as an example of something she really didn't like, because you shouldn't have to wear someone down to be with you. Even if the love ends up being real, you shouldn't have had to just show up for them to even think about you. And in the context of the show, that relationship is so toxic, constantly burns out. So it is definitely true. You do not want to just use that method of consistently showing up in the hopes that it will lead somewhere, because if someone's really into you, they will be texting you back. Same analogy as the stock analogy. That stock is volatile. Get out. Check out early. Cash out. So really the takeaway from her, though, is just to be transparent. Don't create gray areas. And if you don't know where to stand, if you actually don't know where you stand with someone, that's your answer. So if you're asking for clarification and you're sharing how you're feeling and you're still feeling like you're in a gray area, then that's probably your answer. And she did say that you should believe in giving grace to some people because not everyone processes at the same speed. So there has to be time to let someone figure out how they feel, but give yourself a limit on how long you want to wait. Because we really need to start wrapping up situationships probably shorter than they need to be, unless it's something you're consciously wanting to be in and you're happy with that situationship and not wanting more. But so often, and again, we can all relate, 1,000% can relate, have been in situationships for far longer than necessary, thinking it was going to change, telling yourself it was going to be worth it, when really, life is short. Don't waste it. So thank you. The fourth friend. So her advice is the one I think is going to hit the hardest. And she sent me a whole story with it. Her rule is, this wasn't her rule, but she's learned it. Do not hold out for someone to choose you. If they haven't chosen you by now, the odds are that they won't. And if you keep attracting people who are half in, it might be worth asking why. Because sometimes, and she says this with so much love, the pattern is on us. So she had a really long, healthy relationship when she was young with someone who fully chose her. When it ended, she met someone new, fell into insecurity, and eventually she found him on a dating app. So by falling into insecurity, I think she was saying to me that this man was just very touch and go, and as you could think of it, again, the stock analogy, super volatile. And she got really insecure and super anxious. And then she was feeling like things were ending and she was on a dating app. And then she saw him on a dating app. And it really broke her. So she shut her heart down entirely. She made herself completely self-sufficient. She decided, I don't need men. I can figure it out myself. And instead, she had a string of flings that kind of all ended the same way. One guy she was seeing for a few months, and she flew to another country to see him. And within 24 hours of her landing, he broke up with her. And then she was stuck in this other country when they were meant to be on this trip together. So she said she just kept having this thing where she just was not being chosen. And she realized that the guys who weren't choosing her were a mirror. She wasn't fully choosing them either because she was terrified of being hurt. She had completely shut down. So they weren't choosing her because they were reflecting back that she wasn't choosing them either. It was this self-fulfilling prophecy. So she said she found a therapist, started to work through her stuff. She ended up meeting someone years later. They worked through it for 9 months. And these people are still together to this day. And I adore her partner. But they worked through a lot of this heavy resistance she felt for 9 months. And the moment that she gave herself permission to want to love with her whole heart, 3 weeks later, he asked her to be his girlfriend. So her thing was the moment you stop holding back is the moment everything changes. And I really feel like, again, it's kind of like the first story. It's a lot of the girls are saying is saying what you want. And you really do get back what you put out. And I could really relate to this myself because my whole 20s, I think I reflected back a very anxious state of attachment, which is still there. But I don't think I was taking what I really deserved. I just took what I could get. And I was definitely focused on the wrong things. And a big one was availability. I kept dating these unavailable men. And I've shared this in the podcast before when I was giving advice in the advice podcast I did a few weeks ago. A woman was asking about an affair that she was having and how to go through it. And I had shared that that's something that I had been in before as well. And shortly before I met Jeffrey, I had been in an affair and I really had fallen in love with this idea of this person. And I really hit me when that ended that I was asking for the wrong thing. And I was attracting these very unavailable people. And I think it was because I didn't believe that I deserved anything better than that. And when I really started to think through that and asked for something different and opened my heart up in a different way, that's when I met Jeffrey. And at the start with Jeffrey, it was really difficult. I almost ended it multiple times because it felt so uncomfortable because I was so not used to someone being that present and available and kind and open. And I thought something was wrong. And again, as another one of the girls had said, love should feel consistent. And he was so consistent, and all I had experienced was volatility. So I was cashing into all the volatile relationships instead of the one that actually had the long-term growth. But I told myself, go with the thing that feels uncomfortable, because I think a lot of the time, something that feels uncomfortable is where the growth lies. So I went with that, and look where we are. 3 years later, we're still together. My girlfriend had a similar experience with her own mirroring. And I just think that it's such good advice, because you stop holding back, things start to change. And I really do think if you see a pattern, as she said, with all the love in the world, it might be something for you to start looking into and tuning in on yourself. And you can do that with a great therapist. So highly recommend it. But I thought that that was a really beautiful piece of advice to share. The fifth friend. So she has some short, iconic advice. Kiss the girl. Don't be so fixed on your type in your 20s if you don't know anything yet. So she was focused more on her 20s. Stay open. Let it surprise you. Try things. Stay curious. Kiss and find out. And her bonus note, which I fully endorse, if you're wondering if you're gay, you probably are. As someone who is not gay, this is coming from a friend who is, but thank you for her advice, and just go kiss the girl. Whether you're gay or not, go kiss the girl. It's fun. So the sixth friend. So she comes in with very practical advice, and I respect it a lot, because I think this is good, just basic dating advice that we should all keep in mind. Keep dates early in the evening or weeknights, so you still have your wind down time. So I love that idea. I always hated weekend dates, because I felt like weekend was time for me and my friends, and a weekend day or weekday date, something that's early after work, quick drink, or, even before work for a coffee, grab like a coffee midday. I love a coffee date. I think it's such a good way to also not have to do something involving alcohol, because sometimes I just didn't feel like drinking during the week. And time limit yourself, because so often I'd be having a good time and then I'm on a date 6 hours later. And I just think even if it's a great date, limit the time if you can. And I think it's just like you end up craving and wanting to see them more often. She also said, don't become a social chameleon to please someone, because the version of you they fall for actually needs to be you. Very, 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 very true. And I think we all can please the other person at times. And again, it goes back to just like saying what you want. And yeah, you don't want someone falling in love with a version of you that is not the truth, because that's just an absolute waste of your time. Don't take ghosting personally. It's a really hard one. I definitely take it personally for sure, but she's so right, because it's always something that's on them. And if someone ghosts, a lot of the time it's their own personal stuff, because they do not have the balls to deal with someone and to their face. And that has always really bothered me. And I think ghosting is terrible, and you should always be transparent with people. This friend and I have spoken about this a lot. But if someone ghosts you, dust your hands off and move on. And possibly the greatest advice that she said is 20 minutes of fun is rarely worth 20 plus hours of worry. Use protection. Shout out to a condom brand that is not sponsoring me, but you know what you got to do. And now, as we reach the end of our advice of the gals that had things to share, I was going to end with my own advice. So the advice that I would give to my single self, I really fell in love with the idea of people rather than the reality of them. I wanted a connection so desperately that I would build entire relationships in my head before they even existed. I was telling myself stories about who someone was, who we could be, what I wanted it to be. I totally created, and sometimes this is scary. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so in my head, is I think I romanticized my life so much that I created these almost movie-like relationships in my head. And sometimes they were like that. I felt like because I was wanting that, they kind of existed like that, with a lot of volatility and intense emotions and beautiful adventures. But I don't actually think I was always seeing what was in front of me all the time. And I was really speaking from a place of abandonment. And I was choosing people from that wound rather than from a place of really knowing my own worth. And what I now know is that I really wish I had believed in my worth. and be open to love coming from unexpected places. And if someone was wasting my time, I wish I had just left, because there are so many people out in the world and you're not existing to this one true love, because love is an action. It's a feeling, but it's something that you do. So this idea that there's only one person who's your person is so silly to me, because you can love whoever you want. It's just if you choose to do that and if the other person chooses it as well. And that love should never feel chaotic. It doesn't make you feel crazy or anxious or like you're constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop, or you're just like this constant state of what I thought was passion, but was really just anxiety. Because real love is calm and it makes you feel safe and seen and secure. And it takes work, and it's not just something that's a given. And it's a choice that I've continued to make, and I continue to make every single day in my current relationship. And I just wish I understood those nuances. I wish I knew really what love was and how it works. I wish I could have accepted my value, and I wish I could live a little bit less in my head and more in the reality. But also, I look back and I think this is the biggest thing, is thinking about advice to people that might find this useful, but also not judging myself, at least from my experience, for the things that I did, because I learned from them. And I also had beautiful stories. And I'm so grateful for most of my 20s being single and the things that I learned from that. And I just wanted to share single advice because, like I said, I think often I talk about relationships in this podcast, and it's just something else that's pleasant to reflect on. And we're all in it together, because the dating world's crazy. And, apps didn't exist for even some of my friends who, wrote this, and the other ones who did. So it's all these different eras of what dating is like. And I'm sure dating right now is even different to how it was a few years ago. So hope that it was helpful. But really, we pivoted a lot today. We went from Raye to Hans Zimmer to straddling strangers on third dates. So there was a lot going on. But there is actually a tie through, because Clack Symphony, Back to the Beginning, is a song about feeling stuck and finding your way back through your friends, specifically your girlfriends. This feeling fiends for some feminine energy. And that is exactly what this whole section was about. 6 women sharing what they've learned, what broke them open, what changed them, the kind of wisdom that only comes from going through it, what they found in their own experiences. And the thread running through it all is the same thing Raye is singing about. You will save yourself, not the situationship that's been going on 8 months longer than it should, not the person who you keep waiting to choose you. The moment you fully show up as yourself, your standards, your honesty, your whole heart, who you are, then that's when it shifts. And one of my friends said it best. The moment she gave herself permission to want to love, everything changed. And this sentiment was echoed from Raye. She must hold on and she must let go. She will save herself this time. So I really hope this episode made you laugh and made you feel seen, and maybe gave you a little nudge that you needed. If you're in that shitty situationship, get out, girl. It is not worth it. Even if they're really hot, which I've definitely done that. That's for sure. But the greatest love story you will ever have is going to start with loving yourself and learning to love yourself, because that's the person who's there with you from the beginning to the end. So thank you for joining me. As I always say, and you're probably getting sick of this, like, comment, subscribe. Thank you. Please go do it right now. You guys are the best. Anyways, I will see you next week for more Note to Self. Bye.